welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. I'm really excited to be talking with our guest today, Amos Balongo. He is a keynote speaker and a communications coach, and somebody that we're going to be talking about with regards to how we in the nonprofit sector can help boost our own, if you will, personal brand. I'm really excited to have this conversation. It's something, Amos, we don't spend a lot of time talking about, but we need it, right?
Right.
It's super important. Okay, before we get started, I'm super jealous that we're not holding this episode of the Nonprofit Show IRL. Can you tell us where you are?
Honolulu, Hawaii.
Wow. I am like so jealous. We need to like take the Nonprofit Show on the road and meet on the beach.
Well, I'll be holding down the islands for you.
Well, let's get into it because this is going to be really interesting. You know, we are here because we have amazing support from our presenting sponsors, and they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Holdings Nonprofit Banking, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy and your host today for the Nonprofit Show. I'm also really excited to announce that Tony Bell and I, another one of our co-hosts, have published The Architecture of Fundraising. It's a book available on Amazon, and it's all about fundraising and helping you and your organization and your team to navigate the architecture of this amazing process and system. Okay, Amos Balongo, keynote speaker, communication coach. This is one of those topics, Amos, that I feel you either get it or you don't. No matter what your message is, if you're good, you win. And if you're not a good communicator, I hate to say it, but you lose. Talk to us about your work and what it is that you do.
All right. As a communication coach and a leadership coach, I help senior leaders and other leaders effectively communicate their message, effectively communicate. Communication means your ability to be able to connect. And communication is really wide and wealthy. And for this particular segment, I'm going to be talking a lot about visibility. How are you seen in the workplace, and how do you, put yourself out there so that people can see your work? Something that we often not really either good at or not taught how to do.
Right.
So yes, I manufacture leaders. This is what I do, and I help them communicate effectively.
I love it. You know, I think it's really, I love the way you positioned this, because that's one of the issues. You know, we work so hard at promoting and advancing our nonprofits, but we do that oftentimes at the expense of ourselves. You know, that we don't focus in on our own personal brand or how we can navigate that up. And then I think it doesn't cause problems, but I think it limits our opportunities. So let's start off by talking about this visibility issue and how you advise that it's really the key to moving and accelerating your own growth within your career. Share with us how you see this playing out.
All right. Part of my strategy or my approach to communication is simplicity. And I believe everything that I say or do needs to be simple enough so that folks can be able to apply it. Now, with visibility, you're either visible or you're invisible. We're gonna start. We're gonna start with that.
Yeah.
And if you're invisible, it means nobody is seeing who you are as a professional. And as nonprofit leaders, we focus a lot, me being one of them, we focus a lot on, the nonprofit's visibility and what we're doing and showcasing what we're doing. And a lot of times our own personal brand takes a back seat. Now, the truth is nobody teaches you visibility, yet it's very, very important to be able to move forward in your career and develop your brand. And so it's something that is the good thing about it is that it can be learned. And this is something that is not, it's not a gift, it's actually a habit. And it's really not hope, it's a strategy. And you cannot, oftentimes you're told, hey, let your work speak for itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to disrupt that, because I believe that if you don't speak for your work, nobody else will speak for your work. You have to, you have to speak for your work.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And it's somewhat heartbreaking because you can look across the landscape of the nonprofit sector and you can see people that, frankly, aren't that great at their jobs, but they're good at self promotion and they're good at it imbuing confidence and getting people to, I don't want to boil it down to liking them, but feel like, wow, this person's really great. Right. And then it
Right.
just kind of spirals them up to new on and different opportunities. And it's not fair, but it happens. It's not always, like you said, based on your work. So I appreciate you really talking about this. And so let's get into this a little deeper, because how do we strategically showcase what it is we're capable of and what we're doing versus that self promotion piece, which I know we've all seen it. It's hard to describe it and it's hard to define it, but when you see it, you know.
Absolutely. I think there's different ways of doing it, but uh, you're absolutely right by saying you need to be strategic in how you position your visibility. Uh, one of the one of the first things is really, you have to know who your stakeholders are
Mm,
and who you're trying to be visible to, because uh, if you don't know your target, you're not gonna hit your target.
mhm,
And so you need to begin by understanding, is it visible, my visibility, who are the stakeholders that I'm trying to make sure know the work that I'm doing within my own organization, for example. And you always want to look, two levels up. Who are the people two levels up uh, that are the key stakeholders, because they determine promotions, they determine resources, they determine a lot within the organization. So that's a fast strategy. Is you've got to know who you're trying to be visible to.
mhm,
And then the second is, I really call this cross-functional projects. Being visible means, as a nonprofit leader, you need to be contributing and you need to be seen outside your nonprofit in other spaces where nonprofits are active, as well. Because if you're not cross-functional, maybe you're only visible to your team or your nonprofit in your organization, but you need to make sure it's being seen across different functions and organizations, if I will.
right. And I think I love that you said that, because I feel like that really plays into strengthening your donor base, strengthening, as you use the word, stakeholders. But I mean, that could be everything from government officials to business owners who can directly impact how you navigate your nonprofit.
Right.
And I would throw in the media in that. There's just all these different layers that I don't know, Amos, I don't know how you see it, because I know you serve in the nonprofit business, but it seems like we're so entrenched in working our nonprofit that
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to get outside of that. And I love that you said two levels up and out. That's
Yeah.
really an interesting thing. I've never heard anybody actually phrase it that way.
Well, yes, and you're right. I mean, we in the nonprofit world, you hear a lot, or I hear a lot of this. I'm so overwhelmed I can't see the forest from the trees. And a lot of it is because, the nonprofit business is, most of the times roles are stretched, so you don't have a lot of resources, and you have to get out of your um, way to create that time to be visible. Because if you're not intentional about it and you're waiting to be visible, that's not going to be happen. So I always ask nonprofit leaders, what time are you creating and what are the things that you're doing? Make sure you're intentionally making yourself visible, because
Mhm.
if it's not intentional, it will not happen.
Right.
um,
Interesting. It's a fascinating thing too, because I feel another aspect, and it's something that we don't really talk about in the nonprofit sector, but there's this personality issue of being humble and like trying not to draw attention to ourselves in some ways. I think it's also gender oriented. For
mhm.
me, I think women uh, are more hesitant to self promote than men. Men seem to have more of a natural inclination. And I'm wondering if you ever see that, or is that just me reading the room?
I think you know it stems from, we've always been taught, hey, again, back to what I said earlier, is don't blow your own trumpet, let someone else blow it for you.
Yeah.
And I think that was good back in the days, but we're looking at the future now. And if you're not blowing a trumpet, then somebody else is blowing their own trumpet. This is a race. We got to look at it like that. It's a visibility race. So
Mhm,
I always tell people, I give you permission, blow your own trumpet. And
mhm.
you know what? If you can't blow, well, sing like a canary. But you got to do something.
I love that. I think you're right. And I love that you use the word permission to say, look, this is a part of not only building your own brand, but I say that it helps strengthen your own nonprofit and your team within your nonprofit, because um, there are 1.8 million registered nonprofits in this nation. That's
Right.
a lot of competition. So
Yes.
if you can help elevate the conversation, I just think that's a win-win for the organization. In addition to that, in addition to your own brand.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that, you know, we have to remember that speaking about your work doesn't mean you're not being humble, because we confuse that humility thing with, hey, I'm just going to sit there and not talk about myself. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, part of being strategic also, Julia, is we need to speak more in outcomes and not effort. For example, we talk about, I worked so hard on this project. I spent hours and hours putting this together. But we need, as nonprofit leaders and people trying to get visibility, people will recognize your visibility through your outcomes. So if you
Mhm.
switch from efforts and talk about outcomes and say, instead of saying I worked very hard on this presentation, versus this presentation helped us land a $500,000 grant, you see
Mhm.
that has changed the way people receive that, and actually has improved your visibility.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really important. And I think too, to your point, I think in society we are becoming more impact and data driven.
Yes.
We're listening better to these data points and these outcomes. I really like that you reframed it. I think that was really masterful. And you used the word habit earlier, and so I can kind of see where this type of communication would almost have to become a habit. And for a lot of people, maybe it's uncomfortable to start with.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you wake up in the morning and decide, today I'm going to do a complete turn and and work on this visibility thing. It means you've got to build it into what you do, and eventually it just becomes organic.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really an interesting thing. It's also, yeah, I can see what you're saying here. It's like part mindset, and trying to reframe how you're going to talk about things. So part of this is the next issue, and that's networking. I was at a networking event yesterday, and I sat next to a woman who I'd never met before. Turns out she might be one of like the top 20, 25 most powerful women in my state's media landscape, which is
Wow.
huge. I mean, it was stunning. And she was very uncomfortable. She wasn't confident. And all I could think of was, I want to help this woman, because she was so incredibly powerful.
Hmm.
Everybody in that room, in that ballroom, should have been trying to get to her to introduce themselves, pitch stories, connect their nonprofits to her. I mean, and it was just such an interesting thing to see. So could you talk about networking? And this wasn't like a networking event. I would say it was more of a networking opportunity. And I'm curious as to what you think, how we should be thinking about this, like how we should be looking at these opportunities.
I think any networking opportunity, the first thing is it needs preparation. And before you walk into a networking event, you need to know or have an idea who is going to be there, and what you want to achieve out of a network. Um, because collecting as many business cards and talking about your organization to hundreds of people, it's to me, I equate it to uh, communicating but not connecting.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be effective, you have to be strategic. You have to know, I want to connect with people this certain people, because this is how, this relationship or this connection will be able to help my organization or help me personally. And I think that's one of the key things about networking. And then authenticity in the way you network. And a lot of people need to really focus on that. Am I being authentic in how I am networking? Because I look at networking as an inside job before it becomes an outside job.
Okay, explain that. What do you mean by that?
Okay. When you're talking about your organization or you're talking about yourself, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your organization. I've been to many networking events where people are just trying to get through the motions because it's a networking event. I want to talk to as many people as I can. And I don't even maybe believe in my organization, or I don't even believe in myself. And so when you don't believe in your organization or yourself, it shows. And you have to fix yourself inside and say, I believe in this, I'm passionate about this. Because Julia, you've met people who are so passionate about what they do, it just eats up the room.
Mhm.
And those people have no problem networking. But if you're not passionate about it, it comes out. So it is an inside job before it becomes an outside job.
Wow, I never thought of that before. And I go to a lot of events, and I think there is that natural sense of you pump, these are my words, you pump yourself up. You're like, okay, I'm going to go
Yeah.
through, and but I love what you just said. I think it makes it a lot more meaningful, and to use your word strategic, to think of it that way. That's very smart.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very smart. It also seems to me that you need to understand what, when you talk about understanding your goals, where is the serendipity of this? Like, how, finding that you meet somebody who could be a donor or a collaborator, or you create a new relationship with. How do you like navigate that environment and be open to what is out there that you don't know about?
Okay. Going back to the stakeholders I talked about
Mhm.
earlier on, this anybody that is a potential donor, anybody that is a stakeholder in any organization doesn't have a lot of time. And
Mhm.
in these networking events, everybody's competing for their time. And so you have to remember that I would say you need to be bold, because it's only the bold ideas and the bold people that have changed the world.
Yeah.
uh, you need to be very brief in how present yourself, so that you know um, reading a stakeholder your mission statement doesn't do anything for them, because it's not connecting with their hurts. you know so once you're bold, and then you got to be brief, give them something that they can pick up in a few sentences. This is what this organization is all about. And then last, be strategic. Bold, brief, and strategic. And that way, someone will be able to digest what you're telling them and say, I want to work with this person, I want to partner with this person, because you've taken it, you made it brief, you've made it digestible for them, and it's actionable. It's something that they can sink their teeth in and say, hey, I really like this person, I want to partner with them, or I think this is an organization I could work with. So a lot of times we get lost in the details and making things so complex. And back to what I talked about earlier, it's in the simplicity, but there
Right.
has to be strategy in it.
Right. I love that. And I think what I appreciate your comments about this is that sometimes we overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
We just overthink and we overcomplicate, and then we're never served by it, right? Because
Absolutely.
it's just too much. We don't have a lot of time left, but I'd love to explore this concept of you being an expert. When you're out, when you're about, when you're trying to build new relationships, talking about that personal branding that positions you as an expert. How do we do that? Because that fits into this being humble piece as well. Like, how do we kind of, like I use the word, position ourselves to do that?
Right. Um, the I think we're all learning. When you become an expert, you have to remember the humility piece is continue being teachable, continue learning. Because if you rest at the expert place, that's where the lack of humility comes in.
Mhm.
So being a lifelong learner in this space is so important. Now, the personal branding for me is something that goes down to, what are your values? And what is it that you stand for? And is that something that you know you exemplify in the way you interact with people, in the way you run your organization? And you know branding has gone from, back in the days when the cattle rancher would take a hot iron and just put it on the cattle and be like, you're mine, I've branded you, to the personal is business and the business is personal. Because if you're ethical, you cannot be ethical in business. You cannot be unethical in business and ethical at home.
Right.
And I believe that your brand has to be an example of who you are. So before you build your brand, you have to ask yourself, who am I? Because that is a personal brand. What do I stand for? What do I believe in?
Mhm.
And if you're a leader of an organization, you know, if you have a good personal brand, this trickles down to the organization's brand.
Mhm.
Because if you're a great leader with a good brand and somebody who values others and adds value to others and wants to grow others, then naturally that's what's going to happen to your organization. So the personal brand, again, is something that begins with you, and it's internal. Again, I go back to the inside job. Who
Yeah.
are you inside before people can see who you are outside?
Wow. That's a powerful message because that takes a lot of self reflection, stopping, calming your body and your mind, and sitting with yourself and asking those questions, which kind of got to be tough for some people.
Absolutely. I think the hardest person to lead and maybe the hardest person to brand is yourself.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, that's kind of how we started the conversation this morning. Was that, so often we're good at doing this for our community or our nonprofit or our mission, but we are dreadful at doing it for ourselves. It's such an interesting thing.
Uh-huh. It really is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really fascinating. Like I mentioned, we don't have a lot of time, but and that you said something that I want to kind of go back to, and that is this is a habit and this is strategic. It's not going to happen overnight. How long of a process is this? Like, if is this something that we put on our to-do list or our goals for the new year? Like, how do we know if we're moving along in the right direction at the right cadence and tempo?
Okay. The the simple answer to your there's a simple and there's a hard answer to your question. I think I'll answer the hard one though. The hard one is it has to become a part of what you do every day, and I call that everyday visibility. And by that I mean you have to adopt these ideas, these strategies into your everyday life. I was speaking to a gentleman just last week who does really great work, but he only talks about it during review time. And hence I asked him, are you showing your work in real time or are you showing it in review time?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this particular case, you have to do it every day. And how you're going to know your visibility is getting better is how you're received. It's how people begin to talk about, your work and your impact. When other people begin to articulate what you're doing, then you know that your visibility is actually improving. But it's not something that you put on a to-do list and say, I'm going to check this box. It's
Yeah.
something that becomes a way of life.
Yeah.
And if you cannot adopt it the same way you breathe every morning, is the same way you should be working to make sure that what you're doing is being seen and received in the world.
Yeah. It's such an interesting thing. I keep going back to you using that word habit.
Yeah,
And when you frame it, well, at least for me, Amos, when you frame it that way, it's, I can see where it changes your mindset, right? But you have to be thoughtful about it and thinking about it all the time.
absolutely. And it gets to a point where you know you're really good at it when you don't even have to think about it. It just happens organically.
Yeah.
But that takes there is no time frame, there is no 90 days to visibility or 60 days
Right.
to visibility. It's we're working towards it every day, and every day we're getting better at this. And even when we don't think about it and we are doing it, we continue to just improve the way we position ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Super powerful. Well, I have really enjoyed this time with you, Amos. Like I said, I wish that we were there, that the nonprofit show was on the beach with you in Honolulu. I realize that as of our taping this morning, you haven't even had breakfast because it's super early in Hawaii. And we're just delighted that you would take time out of your busy schedule to join us and share your wisdom and tremendous knowledge. Amos Balongo, he's a keynote speaker and a communication coach, and you can reach out to him directly at balongoamos@gmail.com and learn about what his work is and how he approaches his coaching. And what an interesting conversation. I think you really highlighted um, how much we don't talk about this in the nonprofit sector. So I'm really delighted that you brought us forward, Amos, so that we can be shifting our minds and really thinking about ourselves, so that we can do better for our communities and our nonprofits. We are so grateful with the sponsorship and the promotion that we get with these partners of ours, and they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Holdings Nonprofit Banking, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. These are the folks that are with us day in and day out. Um, Amos, we just had our 1,400th episode last Friday. And
Wow.
yeah, and so we didn't really promote it because I don't know what happened. I wasn't in your mindset. I wasn't thinking about these things that you just talked about. And so I want to say thank you to you for helping us to reevaluate what we're doing. It's a really cool thing.
Happy to be here and happy to do this, and you know, keep up doing this great work. We need to keep growing nonprofit leaders, and you are the center of it. And just thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. Hey, everybody, as we end each and every episode, we leave with this message, and it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well.